Hi, I'm Emma Bridger from People Lab,
I'm Belinda Gannaway from Fathom XP.
and we would love to talk to you about our new book, Employee Experience by Design.
Emma, more questions for you. So, we know employee experience makes a really big difference to individuals and to organisations, but why?
It's a great question. I'm really glad you asked that because so many people don't. But there's some really interesting and powerful science and neuroscience that sits behind this whole world of engagement and experience. What we know is that when we have a positive experience, associated with that positive experience is the release of positive emotions. It feels good. That makes sense, right? And something really interesting happens in our brain when we have a positive emotion. When we experience positive emotions, our brain floods with a neurotransmitter called dopamine. And dopamine is really interesting because it's associated with the feeling of positivity, but it also does something else. Essentially, it switches on all the learning centers in your brain. So essentially, when we have a positive experience, we experience positive emotions, and we are primed just to be better at everything we do. That is just one of very many reasons why having a great experience at work, has a sort of scientific basis. It isn't just fluffy or hippie. It has a very clear scientific basis as to why it is good for the individual and good for the company. And we go into this in a lot more detail in the book and explore all the different areas of science that underpin EX.
Yeah, I was going to say read the book for more. There's some great stuff in there on it. But how do we use, now we have that knowledge of the science that sits behind a great experience, how do we use that to design better experiences?
Another great question. We are all about application in the book. Obviously, this stuff's great, but it's only as good as it is when you do something with it and you use it. Again, the book goes into great detail on this, but I'm just going to pull out a few kind of key points. I think the first key point is taking a strength-based approach. So often in organizations, we take a deficit approach. We say, what's not working and how can we fix it? Nothing wrong with that, but it's only half the story. What we find works really well is when we take a strength-based approach and we say to people, what does good look like and how do we get more of it? So this is great when looking at experiences. So rather than saying to people, what's wrong with that experience? We can say to people, when you're having a great experience in this field, whether it's like a great experience of onboarding, for example, or a great experience overall at in the organization, what does good look like and how can we get more of it? So that would be my first tip. I'd also say, let's think back to great pieces of research and models from years ago, like Hertzberg's hygiene motivation factor model. It's not enough to focus on the hygiene factors, things like the pay, the conditions, etc. We need to focus on factors that genuinely motivate people at work. So great experiences tend to be anchored to those motivation factors. So that's the second point I'd like to make. I'd also say that your experience is really subjective, and we've got some great research that shows us there are universal themes, and we're going to be talking about that more very soon. But also there's always going to be those individual differences. So make sure that you really practice empathy and you go out and you find out from your people what a great experience looks like to them.